You are listening to Product and Growth Show.
Hi everyone, this is Product and Growth Show, and it's Yaroslav, and as usual, Pavlo is here.
Hey.
This is podcast number 36, and this is the second podcast we're doing in English. And please help me welcoming our guest, Alex Birkett, a Senior Growth Marketing Manager at HubSpot. Hi, Alex.
Hello. It is great to talk to you guys again.
Thanks for joining. Why don't you make a quick introduction?
Okay, so I work on freemium user acquisition at HubSpot. So essentially, instead of trying to get marketing qualified leads, get people to sign up for ebooks, webinars, or demo requests, my team is fully focused on acquiring users for all of our freemium tools, which are numerous now. We have dozens of them. We have marketing free tools, sales free tools, service free tools, all kinds of stuff. So basically, I run experimental campaigns to try to find net new acquisition channels to get freemium users in the door. And then in addition, in the last maybe a year, a little bit over, I've been running a very small content marketing agency and helping primarily like e-commerce and then software businesses that support e-commerce. That's kind of our niche. We've been helping those businesses with their content marketing and kind of organic efforts.
Cool. What's the name of the agency, by the way?
Omniscient Digital. It's we picked one that's pretty hard to spell. So,
anyways, I'm just curious how their content marketing team in HubSpot. This premium marketing team is structured, because HubSpot should have a decent setup for this. And I'm curious how you guys came up with an organizational structure for this.
Well, it changes from time to time. So like we do reorganizations quite a bit, and who knows what it'll look like in a year. I think it depends on like shifting priorities and like what channels are working, which ones aren't anymore, and which ones we want to double down on. But currently I'm on basically a pod that fully focuses on freemium and owns freemium goals. So on that team, we have people working on partnerships and we previously had affiliate, although our affiliate person moved to paid, which they're still working on freemium growth and also leads growth. So they have kind of like a split prerogative. But yeah, we're all under the acquisition team on the marketing org. So under the same vice president, we have SEO, we have web strategy, which would include conversion rate optimization. So those would be specialist teams. More owning like a skill or a trade, and then we have like our team which owns a goal, but it could be like multidisciplinary as to how we accomplish that goal. And then we also have a leads team, so like that would be like our complement, like the freemium teams, is we have a team that's fully focused on like lead generation and building offers and building campaigns that acquire like MQLs. And then we have a paid team, which again would be like under the specialist banner. That would be like our SEO and our CRO team. And then we also have like a full growth team within the product, so that like our product org has core growth and a data team that works on like infrastructure and like the testing platform. And then we also have a growth acquisition team that works on like all onboarding, sign up flow, virality. And I would say like our freemium team works very closely with them. Like they sit in our weekly meetings, and like our efforts are very like synergistic, and like how my team kind of acquires users to the site, gets them to the sign up flow, and then basically everything is taken. We pass the baton to the growth product team from there. But yeah, who knows? It's like that structure changes all the time. So what it'll be in 6 months to a year might be similar, might be different.
How often do you guys change the structure? I'm asking because at my company we are in the middle of restructuring the teams, making sure that development and marketing teams are aligned and work smoothly. The previous one was about 2 years ago, I think. And how often does it happen in HubSpot?
We'll make minor changes on an ad hoc level. So if like somebody needs to move teams because the goal is more aligned with that team, like that's something that could happen at any time. But typically we do like a yearly, I would say. And some years it's a more drastic reorg than others. Like this year, I don't think much changed at all, at least on my team. And then other years we'll bring like a whole team into a different org. So like, I think it was a couple of years ago, like our academy like switched org structures. So like that was like a more extreme one, but it's typically like once per year. We have like a big strategy week in January where all the marketers typically go to Boston, go to the headquarters, and usually there's some sort of a reorg then.
Wow. So as a person who is involved into content strategy right now, I'm working on a content strategy for the company I work for now. I'm curious, how would you approach this task? I mean, what the one should start with designing a decent content strategy?
The main thing is that I think it's going to be different for many different companies. Like there's no one size fits all. And that's a frustrating answer, but we can get into the specifics as to like different stages. There's different levers you can pull. So I think a good content strategy typically has a distribution channel in mind. So how are you going to get people to read your content? And then there's also the further component as to how you're going to get them to convert or like become valuable to the business. So both of those are embedded in like when you're thinking about content strategy. So the distribution first, like that, you've got to find your audience somehow. There's brands that are giving content marketing advice nowadays that have built their audience years ago. So they sort of take it for granted that like people are just going to come, people are just going to read. But like for the vast majority of companies, that's not true at all. It's like I've started a bunch of websites and worked on startups, and you don't just publish and people don't just come and read. Like it's just not a thing. So HubSpot started blogging in, I don't know, like, 10 plus years ago. Like HubSpot has a big audience, and the advice we give is probably more akin to like find valuable keywords, publish a lot, publish regularly. For a startup, you're probably just going to end up wasting quite a bit of time and resources if you only just publish frequently and like don't worry about how you're going to, acquire those readers. So there's typically two big channels that you can reach readers with, and it would be SEO, which is the main one that I care about. It's long term, it's predictable to an extent, and it builds upon itself. So essentially, like if you invest in SEO today, it's going to be easier to rank for things in 10 months and in 2 years, just because of the way like domain authority, link building, and all that kind of like function. It's like a flywheel. So you'll see trends that are pretty stable over time, which I like to see when investing in acquisition channels. And then there's social, or like dealing with other platforms. So you could go viral on Reddit, you could go viral on Twitter, you could get shares basically by borrowing the audience of other platforms, and that tends to be a bit more spiky and less predictable. So it's like Upworthy. Upworthy is a good example of this strategy, or even some like e-commerce brands, like Beard brand does this well. They also do SEO stuff. Dollar Shave Club. You're expecting your content to be interesting enough and general enough that it reaches a large enough audience to bring people to your site where you can hopefully convert them and they become product users or like purchase from you, or at least like you sign them up for your email list, and then you kind of own that asset. But thinking in terms of like the distribution channel is very important. And then also thinking about how that content is going to lead to a conversion. So I've alluded to that a little bit, where it's like you can sign people up for an ebook, you can sign people up for an email list. Like there's got to be some sort of tangible offer on the table that makes people want to give you their email address, so you can sort of like communicate to them over the long term. Or with keywords and like search engine optimization, like if you're building up content based on keywords, you can predict the intent of certain keywords using a combination of cost per click and keyword difficulty mixed with some of like just general SERP data. Like if you just look at the search results page, you can see like if the term seems to be like more transactional or more informational. So a keyword like best live chat software for HubSpot, like that would be a high intent keyword that people would typically be looking to purchase. So we can design our content strategy with those keywords in mind. But yeah, so at a very, very high level, those are the two things that I would be looking for in terms of like content strategies, like how you acquire readers and then how you convert them. Like what's your conversion strategy and what's your distribution strategy? And again, it's different for large companies versus small companies. If you don't have domain authority, you're also going to have to think about how you can build links and basically be scrappier and produce better, more interesting content than big players. HubSpot can rank content that is above average, But if I start a new website and try to rank for best CRM software, it has to be way above average to like break through the noise.
I mean, when I started my journey into content marketing, I figured out that there are basically three types of assets you can build to enhance your content marketing strategy. The one type of assets is the one that is designed to acquire links. So basically, you don't expect too much traffic on it, but you understand that you can acquire a lot of links and make it kind of a driver of your growth. The second one is the one that has the most drastic search demand, the ones that can acquire organic traffic from search and that can rank high. And the third one is the ones that can go viral go viral on social, which is pretty much always a different thing from other two. So I'm just curious if you agree with that, or maybe you have other assets in mind when designing a content strategy.
Yeah, we're totally aligned on that. The way you put it, yeah. I just wrote a blog post yesterday. It's still in draft form and it still needs to be edited, but it's on what I'm calling the Barbell content strategy. So it's Barbell. I'm going to circle around here for a little bit. The Barbell strategy is something that I believe was invented by Nassim Taleb, author on sort of risk and probability. He's written Anti-Fragile, Skin in the Game, The Black Swan, Fooled by Randomness. So it's essentially building a portfolio based on like only the lowest beta, lowest risk assets, putting like 80% of your investments into like low risk assets. So you never lose your shirt, you never go bust. And then keeping some percentage of your portfolio open for these high volatility, high upside, but you're probably going to lose all your money in them, but there's a very small chance they'll win big. So I think about like my resource allocation in content similarly. And the thing that you hit on is that every piece of content should have like a pretty clear purpose. And I think a lot of people think like, I'm going to write this blog post, it's going to go viral, it's going to rank, and it's going to build links. Like it's going to do everything. Probably like help sales too. Like
which never happens, right?
It ends up being this like Frankenstein where it's serving no purpose. It's like, I don't know, I think a comedian said, there was some quote about like, if everybody likes you, then nobody likes you. Or like if everybody is going to be your fan, then like you're not going to have any fans kind of thing. So like you got to get clear about like what the content is supposed to do. And like there's going to be pieces that you write for the purpose of ranking they're going to build you links, or like maybe it'll go semi-viral. Like that's just like kind of randomness. Like I don't think you can predictably do that. But if you bucket things out, and I would bucket them similarly as you, mine would be a little different. Mine would be like search-driven content, or in most of my like consulting work, I call it product-led content, because we're trying to directly acquire product users or product purchases, and they typically align to, for an e-commerce site, it might align to like category pages, or for HubSpot, like I'm aligning all of these terms to our product pages. So if I'm building out a content cluster or a roadmap, like I'm going to look and say like, all right, we've got a live chat tool. What are all the search-driven pieces I can write about live chat? And those are going to be very predictable, search-driven, more straightforward, I guess. Like it's more predictable stuff, and that would be like our low-risk bucket in the barbell strategy. And then the other end of the barbell, I mix both virality and link building content, so linkable assets. And I just call it buzzworthy content. That's something that actually a colleague of mine, Irina and Nika, came up with. So I just look at them as two discrete purposes, whereas like this side of the barbell is designed to drive traffic consistently and to drive like basically like SEO driven traffic conversions, and then the other side is it's driving like interest. So whether that's making things easier to link to, could be original research, could be like powerful thought leadership and strong opinions, that could go viral too. Like all of that is in my kind of like interest content bucket. And no matter the size of the company, like I'm still going to like keep that bucket open. So even at HubSpot, like there's a percentage of content that we put out that's like thought leadership and original research. I would say the majority of HubSpot's content is now like the SEO driven predictable stuff. But like, for instance, in an earlier stage company, like I would put out way more of the interest level, kind of top of funnel, virality driven stuff, because you need to get attention before you're ever going to rank that keyword driven stuff on the other side of the barbell. But yeah, in general, I love the bucketing of different content types, and I think of it as like dichotomous, like a very extreme barbell where you're only doing one or the other, and you're not trying to like basically like hit all goals with one piece of content, which would be, I think, a good way to produce mediocre content that does none of the goals.
Okay. You know what? The question that I had, how to understand what format of the content to use, because it's really like you can deliver a bunch of stuff, a blog post, a video, and infographics, and all of them will be ranked perfectly well if you're lucky enough and do the things right. But what should you be considering when defining the format of the content?
That's a great question. I think there's probably an objective and a subjective answer, and I think the subjective is gonna lead the way. I think most people have a preferred format by which they want to create content. So I like the written word. I like reading books. I like reading blog posts, and I think I'm a better writer than I would be in other formats. Like I don't think I would compete as well on visual content. Like if I were creating infographics, I think video, I haven't explored enough to know. But there's certain brands that crush it at video. Like I think like Drift comes to mind, like early on. Like I know a lot of their marketers were spearheading a lot of the lo-fi LinkedIn walking iPhone video type content. And they would use that actually to quickly test out ideas, and they would spin those into blog posts if they became popular. I think, yeah, again, a smart like objective answer would probably be like research how your audience consumes content, try to build a strategy around that. But I think the more pragmatic answer is to figure out how you like to create content and what's easiest to you, especially if it's in the beginning of a company. If it's a startup, like if it's a big task and a monumental thing to create content, you're just not going to do it. So I would probably try to make it as easy as possible. And then, you can also repurpose things. So if I write a blog post, I typically, if it's like a long enough one or like a interesting thought leadership kind of one, like I try to turn that into a conference talk or a workshop or I don't know, I might start doing videos. Like, it's something that like, just because you create it in blog post format doesn't mean you can't try others. So there's some experimental component too. It's like whatever format you do, you can also try other formats and see if it gets bigger reach. But I don't know. I think like I bias towards writing and content, not only because I like it, but because it feels like you can own the audience more in the analytics. Like you build it out on your site. You've got like email gates on that page. You can track everything. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I'm more comfortable with it. So therefore I bias towards it. But I don't know. I think like I've seen brands and people crush it at video and at podcasts and audio and many different formats. And I don't know. I think whatever works, keep doing that. I wish I could do infographics better. I've seen people do it really well, especially for like link building and stuff.
Yeah, I like the answer, the part of the answer when you were saying, do whatever you like doing. That's basically what we're doing with Pasha, because none of us is a designer. I mean, we can think we can design stuff, but that's not true.
Yeah,
That's not the case.
That's my
so
thing
we
too.
always like do whatever is easier to deliver.
I've tried to do. I wish I had a designer or more design skills, because like even in my blog posts, I try to do original graphics, but they turn out just like comically, like they look like a child made them. So I just wouldn't be able to compete on like. I don't know what brands do very, very good design driven content, but like I wouldn't be able to compete in that field where, I could at least play the game with content, with writing. So yeah, I don't know. And it's got to be fun too. I think like, especially like if it's early stage, if you're doing it solo, if it's like a small startup, like it has to be something you like look forward to and really get into. Like, because I think like I want to say the reader, but like the consumer of content can kind of feel that too. at least for me, like I can kind of feel when things are phoned in. And if you're working in a format that you really love, you can kind of feel that the person's, I don't know, putting a little love into it, I guess.
By the way, how is your tech stack for content marketing looks like? I mean, what system do you use for reporting? What system do you use for keywords tracking? If you can give us an insight on that.
Yeah, some of my favorite tools, I'm always using Ahrefs. Ahrefs is my content strategy workhorse, and I'm doing keyword research there. I'm auditing client websites. I'm auditing their competitors and basically building keyword roadmaps. And I also use Ahrefs for rank tracking, in addition to Google Search Console. So those would be my two rank tracking tools. I use both in tandem typically. I use, for analytics, let's go with analytics. Google Analytics is what HubSpot uses. It's what all of our clients actually use. So what I'll typically do is build out a custom dashboard in Data Studio, where I take organic traffic to the blog. So I'll use a GA filter and just do /blog and just get those pages. And then I'll also build a corresponding report that shows conversions from the blog. So last click, people who land on a landing page with blog in the title, and then eventually end up converting. And we can, if it's an e-commerce site, like tie in revenue and whatnot and try to get some attribution there. And then I'll typically put a rank track report using Google Search Console in that same dashboard. And that's like a very templated stock version of an analytics dashboard that I would use for clients. At HubSpot, it's way more robust. So we've got like custom analytics tools that I've built that other teams have worked on. Like we've just got like I would say going into the analytics there would be probably overly complex and not useful for everyone, because we're doing a lot of offsite work too. So if we're trying to rank for a keyword like best live chat software, we're also trying to get on all the other lists and all the review sites. So we built tools to track that stuff. But the stock would just be like a data studio that everybody can access, and you don't need like any special analytics prowess. I think that's important. And then another tool that I really love is ClearScope for writing content. So basically you type in a keyword and it reverse engineers like what factors kind of help it rank in terms of content on-site stuff. So you can type in like I don't know, keto diet or something, and it'll pull the top 20 results, and you can analyze your piece of content, and it'll give you suggestions as to like which words to add in.
ClearScope is just insanely useful.
It is.
I mean, I was advised on ClearScope like a few weeks ago, and I was totally, blown away with the fun. It's so simple, and I miss the tool so much.
It's effective, and I like it also because you can basically teach any freelance writer how to use it very quickly. Like it's so intuitive. Hey, add these keywords, and you just find a place to add them in. It's very cool. It gives you like a score, like an A+, B-, like all that stuff. Okay, so we've got Ahrefs for keyword research, ClearScope for content optimization and writing, Data Studio plus Google Analytics for analytics, and Google Search Console. And then everything else is kind of variable. It's like whatever CMS, like WordPress, or like some clients have Shopify. And then there's tools at the margins that we use. Like I sometimes use Grammarly. It depends. If I'm writing on my own site, I just let the typos slip, for better or for worse. And Wordable. Wordable's a great one. If you use WordPress, it basically lets you one click like upload Google Docs drafts to WordPress. So if you're writing long form content like I often do, it'll save hours on uploading and formatting all of that stuff. I think that's the main tool stack. I could go deeper on some of the project management aspects, which are typically done in Notion or Trello. Our Notion board is actually pretty robust at this point. David Kim is like my business partner on this agency. You guys know David Kim. He's like a Notion master. So we build like custom Notion boards for all of our clients, like as an onboarding thing. Like it's like their own HQ. We've got like workflows for them and for us, and like that's where we like basically run all the operations for client work. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for tools. I could be forgetting something.
With that variety of tools, how do you know whether your content is any good?
How do we know whether it's good? I think
Other than checking the number of downloads or page views, what have you, what else is an indicator?
what's a quality test? Sort of like if we don't have quantitative numbers, if we don't know it's ranking or bringing traffic or conversions, like how do we know if it's good? It's qualitative. Yeah, that's a tough question. We have guidelines. HubSpot internally, we have like all kinds of editorial guidelines, and it's actually pretty well. One, it's impressive. Like HubSpot's content machine is amazing. Like when I first joined, like that was what I was most impressed by, is just how ironed out the system was, and how it's actually like quite few content marketers producing that much content, and like any guest writer who gets slotted in, like all of the content sort of cohesively fits HubSpot's brand and style guidelines, and that's because internally the machine is so well run. But it's pretty much through well-trained editors and through really robust style guidelines that everybody has to follow. I don't know what if there's like an objective quantitative measure. I think it's more just like hiring good editors and making sure that like the editors can conform content, whether it's on their team or like themselves, or whether it's a guest writer, whether they can conform that content to the style guidelines. And that's something I try to replicate as well with any projects I'm working on, or with any clients I'm working on, or my own site. I just try to like maintain my own like high personal standards. Maybe something interesting. This is something that I try to adhere to for my own website or like clients that we work with. At CXL, when I was running the blog, or like when I first started working on the blog, Pep Laya, the founder, he had like a mini style guideline document, but like the main point was that every article we write should be the best in the world on that topic. So like the heuristic was, if the reader has to go and read other things on this topic, then you have to improve the blog post. Like that, it's like a very high standard, and like who knows if you always hit it. But having that in the back of your mind when you're writing, it makes you question like should I expand on this section? Like, is this clear? Like, is this fluffy? Like, should I cut this? And it makes you really think about like basically like running like that last mile that I think a lot of people don't think about in terms of content. It's like, how can I like make this not just like in the pack, it like rankable, but like how can I make this best in the world? So it's a qualitative answer.
Yeah,
Very
that's
subjective.
very, very subjective and qualitative, but that's something you should keep in mind when you're producing the article.
Mm-hmm. It's for sure important too in the early stages. As I've mentioned, I think this was a main section of the workshop that I gave last year at the conference, and it's that like as you're growing a startup, as you're growing a content program at a startup, you have to, your content has to be way better than what's currently out there, just because of like the flywheel economics of it. It's like other companies that have a domain authority or website authority of 60, 70, 80, higher domain authority, right? Like they can rank things that are pretty mediocre or average just by the good nature of their brand name, right? Google looks at them and says, they've produced good content for years. We're going to rank things a little easier. That's a simplified heuristic. And if you're starting out, like you don't have that credibility, you don't have the link profile. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and you have to overcompensate in terms of quality and differentiation. And that's where a lot of these memes in the SEO and content world have come out, like the 10x content, skyscraper technique. All of these things are saying the same thing. It's like if you're trying to break through and trying to break in, and you're kind of a up and coming content machine, then you really got to like do it much better. And I think that CXL heuristic helps you think that way. If you're doing content at like Salesforce or SAP, you probably don't have to think that way though. probably just publish a lot of stuff. You're probably good.
That's interesting. I mean, of course, we're looking in what Conversion Excel does, and they're doing such a decent job with their content. And I'm curious how much effort it takes to have the bar that high, the bar of quality. I mean, just let's imagine you're launching Conversion Excel or like a professional website this year, and your plan is to acquire the traffic in the same way they do. How would you approach this? How would you choose the content? How would you go about this?
Conversion Excel. When I was writing at CXL, it was the hardest work I've done ever, because I was simultaneously doing other things too. Like we were still launching the institute and like doing all the product marketing, fundamental positioning and stuff. And I was still writing these long form posts on, I don't know, somewhat esoteric topics. Like outside of the marketing space, like writing a blog post on like how many variants should you run in an A/B test, and like one tail versus two tail frequentist testing methods. Like it's not stuff like you would expect to write about, especially like I was pretty fresh out of college. So I don't know if I was launching something like that again, or writing that from scratch. I think it would be hard to compete in that space now. I think it's a lot noisier than it was when CXL started. That's one thing. Is probably picking a space or like a niche or like a subsection of that space. I would probably like cut it down a lot more, because Pep had originally written about quite a broad swath of subjects, which CRO is a broad subject anyway. But he would write about persuasion and psychology and user experience design and A/B testing statistics. And I think it would be very difficult to start a new blog and write about all of that today, and compete against CXL and Conversion Sciences and Optimizely and all these other sites. But holding to that standard, I think like the high quality is what got them there. We had loyal readers who, if we put out something a little subpar, disappointing, we would hear about it immediately. So it was this. It's totally opposite of like a keyword-driven SEO strategy in which you're dealing with a constantly shuffling audience of like a lot of new visitors who are just looking for a single answer. Like we had a pretty big email list, and we had quite a bit of SEO and organic play as well. But we mainly had an audience who came back like post after post to read, and it was more like a wait but why kind of thing, right? Like people would come to read Pep's thoughts on a given subject, or like even my own. Like people would come to CXL to learn about CRO. So we built like kind of a brand through hard editorial standards and like high editorial guidelines. So I don't know. It was kind of a roundabout way to say that. I think the high bar for the content itself was the defining factor for the CXL blog. I think having those high standards push it beyond like a typical SEO player, a typical middle of the road blog.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think we are about to wrap it up, but I have the last one from my side. Mm-hmm. Yaroslav, do you have any?
I was just thinking of our last night's conversation of the article that we came up with, and we had a kind of debating. I was saying like, this is bullshit. This cannot go live. And Pasha said, well, it's good enough to be released and yada, yada, yada. And that's basically pretty much what you are describing. It's always a dilemma on, is it good enough, or is it like, can it be the best and in when compared to what's available out there?
That's a tough, yeah. So there's a point of diminishing returns, and finding that point is pretty hard. So at CXL, I still had to publish twice a week, so I couldn't spend months and months on a given blog post. So I'd still have to launch it after a certain point. But I think just having that heuristic as the best in the world, it doesn't mean it's actually going to be the best in the world. It just means you're going to care a little bit more than you would have if it were just, if your editor or boss just said like, hey, we just need to publish 5 times a week. Like if that was your heuristic, you'd be like, okay, I just need to publish 5 times a week. But if they said, hey, we're the best, like you got to make sure that we adhere to that standard, because there's a lot of people that care about this content. And if you don't produce the best stuff, or like if you're producing like consciously like BS content, then like our brand is going to suffer. Like if you're just looking at content creation that way, you can still publish the same amount, but like just there's some qualitative shift in how you think about content when you think about it that way. So I think it's more so just like how you approach it, and less so like spending 100 hours on a piece of content. Because let's be honest, if you spent 100 hours on a piece of content, even if it did the best possible job at converting every user who came in and like it ranked for the term, it's still probably not like worth the ROI. Like the cost of producing that would way outweigh what it would actually do. And you're a business, you know, you can't, like, it's not like you're writing like a novel that you hope is going to be around in 100 years. It's, you know, it's content. Like you still have to like publish it and like do other things and come back the next day. So it's you have to split that difference between like, you know, ship things and get business results and adhere to the point of diminishing returns. Like you don't want to like produce way beyond like what's actually going to get you value, because then you're just wasting money, right? So there's a split there for sure. Depends on the business too. Again, CXL built a brand on that stuff, so it was like we would have people complaining if we didn't do it, but not everybody expects to read 5,000 word super well researched blog posts. Like, you know, certain spaces could be different too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I read your recent post on A/B testing on Conversion Excel. I mean, I'm not pretty much sure that it was recent, but I read one of your posts from Conversion Excel, and it was so long. I mean, I don't know, it was maybe 5,000 words or something like that.
That got me in a bad habit too, because like I did my job before that was at a Lawn Starter, and we did content, but it was pretty typical. We actually had a barbell strategy long before I knew what a barbell strategy was. We did like very SEO driven, like lawn care related stuff, and then like link baity, city focused stuff, because we were like a local on demand business. But CXL, for better or for worse, made me only interested in writing like very long form, like very technical, like hashed out stuff. And now even when I'm writing on my own site or like writing a HubSpot post, like I can't stop before like 3,000 words, you know, like it's kind of it's a problem now. I can't write short form.
Well, that's a good problem to have. Yeah, I mean, the last one from my side, if talking about the inspiration, do you have any teams or companies you look after in order to see how they do content marketing?
So my inspiration is because like my career is somewhat strange. I find like my two areas of interest are content marketing and then conversion optimization, and like really like the analytical side of that. So like the more technical side and less the design side. So for content, I don't typically look to other blogs or like other companies. Like there are a couple that I think do it well. I think On It does their academy very well. So there's tons of research and information on like diet and exercise and basically all health and wellness, and I think they crush it. Similarly, Bulletproof, like Bulletproof Coffee, I think their blog is amazing. I like creative, like interesting iterations on blogging strategy. So I really liked when Intercom came out with their very specialist-driven content. You know, they had writers and editors who would work with actual domain experts, and like you would get content straight from the mouths of the people doing the work. And I thought that was really interesting. I still look to CXL as like an icon as to like how to do my own content. Like they're still crushing it. There's a lot of agencies that do really great content. Animals, another content marketing agency, is great at thought leadership and putting out like interesting opinions into the world. Siege Media is also another really good one. And then for companies like in the CRO and A/B testing space, like there's a ton that I really look up to, and people in particular. But like Microsoft, Booking.com, Airbnb, Netflix, the programs that have like somehow like there are thousands of employees and you know, millions of users, and like they're just at such a high level of complexity, and they've built internal systems and really over-indexed on like building infrastructure in their own tools that allow them to run thousands of experiments per year. So I'm just like, I'm enamored with companies that care enough to invest in their own tooling and their own sort of enablement to like basically unleash the creativity of any given employee. So I think that's really cool. And I guess you could say the same for blogging. I think it's really cool that Intercom has basically done the same thing. for experts within the company, right? Like they've sort of unleashed the ability to like have any voice who has like a topic expertise talk about what they know on the blog. And I think that's awesome too.
Cool. Thanks for sharing all of this. Okay, are we good?
Yeah, I was just trying to summarize it. But in short, you have to find the audience, you have to publish a lot, publish regularly, find the channel,
Build links.
build links. Okay.
Good old links.
It's the hard part. Building links is
Gotcha.
the hardest thing you
I
can
think
do.
we should. I think we should record another one on link building.
We should.
Oh yeah, that would be a good
100%.
one.
Cool. All right. Thanks for jumping into this call. Pleasure to see you again, and hopefully see you around this year or maybe the next one.
Oh yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll be happy to see you in Kyiv, Ukraine again.
Thanks again, and see you soon.
All right, cool. See you later.